if you're a complete mess right now, you've got documents everywhere, your email's out of control, you've got admin piling up that needs doing, just take some time out to get on top of that, because that's always going to slow you down. You'll never be able to get yourself to where you want to be if you've got that behind you. I call it like a low level of anxiety. It's not urgent, but you know it's growing and it's bothering you. But I'm more not into the Drive to Survive Netflix. That's just entertainment. I'm more into the actual mechanics of what's going on in the background. But if you look at the pit crews, they can change 4 tires in less than 2 seconds. I mean, 1.82 seconds is the current record. McLaren hold it. And I remember seeing that and just going, wow. Now, that takes a lot of preparation, a lot of training. They're doing a lot of practicing. I think it's the Japanese Grand Prix this weekend. For me, for you, it's Wednesday night. For me, it's Thursday. But I can guarantee that since Tuesday, that pit crew's been practicing. You know, they've been practicing a long time.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Grateful Podcast. I'm your host, Jack Wagoner, and today I'm honored to be joined by Carl Pullein. Carl is an expert in a subject that so many of us want to get better at, managing our time. As the author of Your Time, Your Way, a productivity coach and a well-respected voice in the world of time management and personal organization, Carl has helped hundreds of thousands of people take control of their schedules, improve focus, and design a life that aligns with their values. His unique approach blends practical strategies with a deep understanding of human behavior, making productivity feel more like an art than a rigid system. In today's conversation, we're going to dive into Carl's philosophy on time, discipline, and how you can transform it into the most effective version of yourself. Carl, welcome to the Grateful Podcast. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me.
So before we even started this talk, I got a little insight into your schedule, your time blocking. It seems like you have a specific little window on a certain day where you do a lot of your calls. Walk me through what a day like today would look like for you.
Well, today, for me, it's Thursday, which is a unique day because I just treat it as calls. It wasn't meant to be. It just happened that that's how it worked. Now, the thing is, because I live in South Korea, currently there's a 16-hour time difference between here and the west coast of the US. 13-hour difference on the East Coast, and then there's 8 hours or 7 hours in Europe. So I have to work odd hours, so to speak. Yeah. So normally Thursday morning is for the West Coast of the US. So for any clients that I have on the West Coast, Thursday and Sunday morning is when I do those calls. Mostly, though, my calls will be in the evening, usually like between 9 and 11 p.m. So for me, like a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday time, morning time is my creative time. 9:30 to 11:30 is generally blocked on my calendar for me to get on and do the creative work, the writing, video production, podcast, whatever. And that way I know if somebody says, oh, can we meet at 10:30? I can say no immediately because I know, no, that's my creative time. 11:30, absolutely. 8:30, absolutely. Between 9:30 and 11:30, no. That's when I have to get my real work done.
Yeah.
So that's essential. That would be kind of the philosophy is at some point in the day, it doesn't have to be in the morning. It just so happens that for me, it works in the morning. That's when I'm at my brain is at its most creative. I'm generally quite dead in the afternoon. So I take my dog for a walk, do my exercise, admin, email, that'll do in the afternoons. But morning time I have to protect because that's when I'm at my most creative. It would be a waste if I was spending that time in meetings.
Right. Because that's your whole thing, right? Everything you do relies on your creativity and the quality of what you say and the words and that you come up with and all of this. I found it so interesting studying some successful people, how a common theme I've seen with a lot of people is they block this time often in the morning for their creative work and the work that only they can do themselves, because if they there's an analogy from a guy interviewed named Jonathan Goodman, and I forget who he quoted it from. So this is like I'm getting it down the chain of quotes, but there was this analogy about you have to have a monkey juggling, and they are going to have this a monkey reciting Shakespeare while juggling. It was very complicated. I found it quite funny. Uh, but you have to have the monkey on a pedestal. And so what a lot of people like to do is they like to build the pedestal because it seems productive, but it will never matter if they can't get the monkey to recite Shakespeare while juggling, which is the actual task. So I found it very interesting to notice how successful people like yourself block the time to get the monkey to recite Shakespeare, the thing that actually will move the needle forward.
Well, yeah, for me, it's 2 hours every day where I am incognito, if you like. But if you think, even for a busy manager in a company that still has their own individual work to do, it's 2 hours out of, say, a typical 8 hour day. So you still got 6 hours to be available for clients, for your team, for your boss, everyone else. It's not 2 hours is not a lot of time, but it's actually 10 hours a week, and you can get a ton of stuff done in 10 hours a week. And I think that's one of the other problems that people have, is they tend to look at the here and now and panic, when actually I always advise, like with my clients, is don't look at it as a day. You're going to have good days and bad days. I mean, you're just a human being. That's what makes us unique. But you don't know when you're going to have a bad day. You don't know when you're going to have a good day, or what I call the meh days, where it's okay, but yeah, I got my stuff done. So I tend to look at it as a week. This is what I've got. This is what I want to get accomplished this week, and I will try and do it on Monday and Tuesday, because I call it front load the week. So then I'm not under pressure at the end of the week. But it doesn't always work like that. Some days Monday's going to be just a bad day, and that's okay. I'm going to have to catch up on Wednesday, Thursday. But I know I've got the week to catch up. And out of a week, I'll probably have 2 good days, 2 bad days, and 3 days. And I'll take that.
Oh, I love the concept of front loading. I don't know if you can relate to this or in the past, but there's so many times when I need to get a podcast episode out one day, and I'm like, oh wow, I need to edit it tonight. I need to do all this because it's coming out tomorrow morning. A balance I've had to find, and I think a lot of people work this balance, is between organizing and actually taking action. I've always felt that the more time I spend organizing what I'm going to do, the less time I spend actually doing it. But there has to be a balance there. In your experience, where's the line between the productive planning and it just becoming another form of procrastination?
Well, that's an interesting one, because if you take an analogy, one of the things I love about Formula One is the mechanics of it, not the entertainment side. And McLaren have the world record at the moment, 1.82 seconds to change 4 tires. Just unbelievable. But you know that they've been practicing. They've been practicing through the winter. They practice. That crew practice and practice and practice. Now, in our productivity world, and the difference between organizing and doing, what I tend to tell people is there is a point where you're going to have to step back and get your stuff organized. It's like a one-off, if you like. So if you're a complete mess right now, you got documents everywhere, your email's out of control, you got admin that's just piling up that needs doing, just take some time out to get on top of that, because that's always going to slow you down. It will just slow you down, and you'll never be able to get yourself to where you want to be if you've got that behind you. I call it like a low level of anxiety. It's not urgent, but you know it's growing and it's bothering you. So it's this low level of anxiety that's just really hitting you. So I would say step back, perhaps just give up a weekend and just say, no, I'm going to get my stuff organized. But once you've got it organized, now it's a lot easier, to get on top of things and stay on top of things. Now, again, it takes a bit of practice. You're going to fall behind from time to time, and that's okay. That's normal. But you start developing what I call practices, like daily practices that keep you on track. So for me now I've done the hard work in the past. So for me now, that end of day planning is 5-10 minutes, and the weekly planning probably about 40-45 minutes a week. So it doesn't take me long now, but that's because I did do that hard work. I did have that weekend where I said, no, I need to get all my stuff organized because I'm just overwhelmed. And unless you can get on top of that overwhelm will never go away.
Yeah, you have to, I guess you have to prioritize just blocking out that time and saying, I'm going to do this, because it'll make everything else more efficient. Where I've run into problems, and I know other people do as well, is thinking, well, this isn't my high order task. But that low level of anxiety you talked about, such a great way to put it. It's just constantly.
Well, I think of it as like there's a
you.
buzz going on in the back of your head, because
Yes.
there's something that you haven't dealt with. I know David Allen would call this an open loop, but when he wrote Getting Things Done, which is like kind of the Bible of productivity in the last 20 years, that was 2001 when that book came out. So he was writing it probably 1999, 2000. It's like 25 years ago now. We still were overwhelmed, but we didn't have that constant overwhelm just every day. 150 emails, 200 Slack messages. No human being can really stay on top of that, because whilst technology changes, our brains don't. We don't change, not that fast. We do over thousands of years, but we're talking technology is changing. Well, sometimes it feels like technology is just changing every day. It's a little longer than that, but it isn't far off. And yet our brains aren't. So at some point, we've got to kind of say, okay, time out, stop. I need to get my stuff organized, put some procedures or routines or processes in place, and then I'm just going to run with it. And there'll be a little bit of backlog. I mean, I don't know how many emails I've got to reply to today, probably about 20 or 30. But I'm not panicking yet. I'll deal with that this evening. I sit on the sofa and just do it.
You're comfortable, and you just reply. The replying to the emails is one of those tasks that's like you have to, but again, it's not that high order deep work, and that's why so many people put it off. I've
learned my lesson. If I don't do it today, if I don't give myself 45 minutes to deal with my actionable email today, well, that's tomorrow. I'm going to have to give it 90 minutes. If I don't do it tomorrow, it's now going to be like over 2 hours, 2 hours, 15 minutes. I don't want to spend over 2 hours just sitting there with email. No, thank you.
Yeah. I think when people feel overwhelmed, it feels sometimes impossible to differentiate between those things that need to get done right now and the things that really don't even deserve your time. Have you developed any method for differentiating between what is worth allocating your time toward?
Well, there's two things that I would always recommend to people, and actually, I think the first quarter of the book is about this as well. There's two parts. There's areas of focus, which is your personal life, and I would always start there. So that's got family and relationships, health and fitness, career, business, finances, self-development, spirituality. There's 8 of them. We all share the same 8. The difference is that we all would define them differently, and we would prioritize it differently because it depends on where you are in life. And the second part is what I call core work. What are you actually employed to do? Why does the company pay you to do your job? What are they paying you for? That's going to be your core work. I always find it quite interesting that those companies that are still doing like evaluations, there are some. I believe not a lot of companies believe in it now, but there are some companies that still like to do their quarterly or annual valuations. Mm-hmm. Nobody's getting demoted because they're a few days late replying to email. They get promoted based on how they do the work that they're employed to do. So you need to establish and get very clear about what is it that the company is paying me to do, and make sure that that is your priority. All the little extra stuff is voluntary. If you've got time, by all means do it, but make sure that that core work, as I call it, the work that you're employed to do, gets done. So a salesperson, for example, you sell. If you're not selling, you're going to get fired. Now, if you prioritize the company's weekly sales meeting above meeting a customer, you probably got your priorities wrong. The customer is where you're going to make a sale. Sitting in a weekly sales meeting with your sales manager is not going to result in a sale. Now, in the moment, it feels right. I'm with my boss. My boss wants to see me. But at the end of the year, when your sales figures are below your target and you're having an evaluation, nobody cares that you were in that sales meeting. They only care about your sales performance. A teacher teaches. I mean, I've worked in universities and I've worked in language institutes here. It became pretty clear soon that my role was to prepare my classes and to teach the classes. The admin side, like student attendance records and that sort of stuff, that was very low priority. But I saw so many teachers getting themselves stressed about their attendance records and thinking, no. It's your students, your teacher. That's what you are. You're not an administrator. By all means, those things are important, but you would catch up with them later. You focus on making sure your classes are prepared and you go in and teach, because that's what you are. You're a teacher. Your core work is teaching. And so it's something that I notice a lot of people don't do, which is figure out what is it that I'm actually employed to do. And then you prioritize those actions above everything else. Now, it's difficult, but it's definitely worth it.
Keep the main thing, right?
Yeah. It's very easy to get distracted these days, though. That's the thing with minor things. I know that Jim Rohn always says something along the lines of, don't major in minor things.
I like that.
And a lot of people have got themselves caught up in the minor things and have lost sight of the major things. So as I say, a salesperson is being in front of a customer. That's a major thing. Doing your activity report is a minor thing.
What would the major thing be for, well, I guess it depends per person, but let's say when you were starting your whole online persona and online brand, what was your main thing? Because I think a lot of people that are trying to become entrepreneurs, that's where they really struggle. They don't know, should I be focusing on getting leads? Should I be focusing on creating content? And when you don't have a clear job description, it becomes a lot harder to figure out what you're optimizing for.
Well, of course, it does depend on the kind of business that you're doing. If you're in a manufacturing, if you're making something, there's a great company called Lost Dutchman Leather. I would recommend anyone just go and search Lost Dutchman Leather. It started by a young kid. He's not young anymore. He's probably mid-20s now. But when he started, I think he was 12 or 13 years old. And he just made leather wallets. And they are phenomenal quality. I have three of them. I just love them. I only need one wallet. And they last a lifetime. But I think his name is Nathan. I mean, he's passionate about leather. And what he did was he started, just making wallets. I mean, he was developing his skill set at creating these wonderful leather wallets. That was where his priorities were. That's a manufacturing. So you need a product. You need something tangible, physical. And then he was taking pictures of them and putting them on social media. And then website and stuff came later. If you're in kind of like a services kind of business, I would always say focus on the content, get some kind of authenticity. So you need to be writing blog posts, doing YouTube videos, doing social media, whatever. Those kind of things, you've got to get that out there. Now, the problem that I see that people do is they waste so much time on business plans, logos, company names. If you don't have anything to sell, those are irrelevant. They come later.
Yeah.
I think I ended up choosing my company name just because I saw, Tony Robbins calls it Tony Robbins International. That'll do. And I saw Brian Tracy does the same thing. Brian Tracy International. I thought, yep, that'll do. So I just used my name and added international to it. I didn't need to come up with
That's
some
smart.
weird and wonderful name. That would have just been a complete waste of time.
Hmm.
And I don't know where Lost Dutchman leather comes from, but I'd love. I should actually research that because I admire what Nathan has done. It's just tremendous what he's done with these leather wallets. They are fantastic. But again, it all started with his love of creating and crafting something in leather. He's posted a few pictures online, and wow, he's got a tremendously successful business now.
Yeah, that's incredible. I and that's you make it sound so simple, right? If you have a
Well, the
if you
thing
have
is,
a
it is simple. The problem is people are impatient. You know,
mm,
I my first year when I started my business, I realized that I needed to build credibility in this space, in the time management and productivity space. I remember saying, okay, 2015. I remember flying back to Korea, having spent Christmas with my family, saying, right, every week for the next 52 weeks, I'm going to write a blog post. Oh, I don't have a website. Oh, I don't have a blog. Okay, that's the first thing. So when I got back to Korea, because there's a 9 hour difference between Ireland and Korea. So I thought, right, I'm up at 3 o'clock in the morning because I've got jet lag. Let's get this website sorted out. And I'd heard about Squarespace or something and thought, right, that'll do. It wasn't like hours and hours of research. I thought, yeah, I've heard of Squarespace. That'll do. And I just used that. I still use them today. And that was it. I just wrote a blog post every week for a year. And I knew, because I still had a full-time job, that I wouldn't have much more time to do anything else. But it all started in 2015 when wow, that's 10 years ago. I didn't realize it's actually 10 years ago when I
wow.
started that blog. And I have pretty much kept up with that, writing a blog post every week for 10 years now. But that's where it all started from. I wasn't worried about business plans or, logos and stuff like that. I just created a blog because I knew I had to build credibility first. Without credibility in the space that I'm in, it'd be a lost cause. So I had to prove to people what I knew. And then in 2016, I started the YouTube channel. That was the next
Right.
phase, if you like. 2017 was the podcast. So because I was a sole trader. I have people working for me now, but I was a sole trader. I knew that time is my constraint. There's only 24
Mm,
hours in the day. It doesn't matter what I want to do. I'm always going to be constrained by those 24 hours. So I just waited until I got the process set up for writing blog posts. That's easy for me now. And it's kind of interesting when I'm working with a client and they want to start a blog. It takes them like 2 months to write the first blog post. And I'm thinking, well, it's just 90 minutes. But then I forget I've been doing it for 10 years. Of course, I'm going to be much faster. I have a process now.
right. So many people, I mean, one of the problems online, and I'd be interested to hear your take because I, as a young kid, I don't really know what it was like before the internet age in business and all that. But so many
It was
people
wonderful.
that
I can
have
promise you it was wonderful.
so so many people like yourself could say, I can write a viral blog post in an hour and a half in 90 minutes, and then they try to sell that to beginners that haven't done it before, that are addicted to instant gratification and want that immediate result, but it's taking you 10 years. Nobody wants to hear that real progress comes from doing the little things consistently. Slow and steady wins the race seems like some outdated cliche. No one wants to be the tortoise because it's boring and predictable. And so over and over, these people are having to learn the hard way that the true success, it comes from doing something boring and predictable. And people who are telling the truth online, talking about how you can be the tortoise rather than the hare, I see them being overlooked, which is kind of sad because people keep going back to wanting to instantaneously get these massive results. So it's this constant
That's why we
battle.
have we have billions of people around the world who are massively disappointed because at some point reality is going to punch them in the face, and it does. And you think about I mean, in the last 2 or 3 years, ChatGTP and Sam Altman have become like really famous. I'm not interested in what he's done in the last 2 years. I'm interested in what Sam Altman has done over the last 10 years. And, 8 of those years will have been spent learning his craft. He will have been learning to code. He will have been learning all about AI. He would have been reading every book, article, watched every video. He'd have spent hours, probably nothing else but looking at AI. No social life, nothing. It's just looking at AI. That's how ChatGPT came about. It didn't come about because this guy suddenly woke up in the morning saying, "Oh, I've got it." And then he announced it on, online, and suddenly he's got, he's making headlines around the world. That is fake. It's fiction. It doesn't happen, and it won't happen for anyone. The overnight success, I'm always look at behind the overnight success, because there's probably 10 years of work, a lot of work. And that's great, because that's what sorts out the successful from the not successful. The successful people are the ones again, go back to the Formula One analogy. Lewis Hamilton, amazing driver. He started when he was 4 years old. Not one of those 20 guys who line up on Sunday for the race came in overnight and suddenly were an overnight success. They were doing karting when they were 5, 6 years old, and they're in their, early 20s now. So it's 15 years of constant competition and driving. That's how they become Formula One drivers. There is no shortcuts. But this is actually one of my, I suppose you can call mentors, but I've never met him, is Gary Vaynerchuk. I like the fact that right at the time I needed to hear hard-hitting message, he was the guy I was going to watch on YouTube. And, all the lessons like he talked about, which is learn to love the process. I mean, I love Monday mornings when I sit down to write. It's fantastic. I get some music on. Awesome. I look forward to it. It's not a chore. If it's a chore, you'll never be successful. Because you hate doing what you do. Why would you want to do that?
I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Grateful Podcast. I'm interrupting to let you know that it would mean the world to me if you could share this episode with someone that you think would enjoy it, or leave a review down below so I can learn what I can do better and what I'm doing well with this podcast. It's a passion project, and I really want it to turn into something that helps people everywhere. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoy the rest of the episode. Does it ever feel like a chore? Do you ever wake up and say, today I'm really tired and I don't feel like doing this?
No.
That's awesome.
Honestly, my wife says, "Do you ever get bored doing what you do?" I said, "Absolutely not, no." Because I think it's because I don't put myself under that pressure that the blog post has to be written this next 90 minutes.
Yeah.
If I'm having a bad day and I can only write 500 words, I'll take that, because now I only have to write 700 words tomorrow.
See, that is what I think the ideal life is. You wake up and you are just excited every day to do what you're going to do.
Oh yeah.
That's just amazing, and I'm so glad.
It really hit me when somebody said, "Love the process." Those words, "love the process," and the success will follow. I'm not sure the success will follow is completely accurate, because it depends on, But one of the things about that writing for me was, and it's the same with YouTube videos. My first YouTube video is still up. And I look at it, and every time I look at it, I just want to cry because it is so bad. Yeah. But when I look at my video that went out this morning, for example, and compare that to the one I did in January 2016, that brings me joy, because that is, 9 years of progress, and I can see it.
Yeah.
You can actually see it. Now, I couldn't see it from video 1 to video 2 to video 3 to video 4, but I can see it from video 1 to video 1000 and whatever. So it's taken over 1,000 videos to get to a level where I'm still not satisfied, but I think it's acceptable now. But that first one, I want to cry. But again, I could look at this first blog post and it's horrible. But the great thing about that is that over the years, I've not become obsessed with it, but I love now learning about writing and writing styles and being able to say, do I really need that word there? Could I
Yeah.
remove that word? It's all about removal now in writing. Can I shorten this paragraph? That to me is the fun part of writing blog posts.
It seems that, yeah, you get this micro progress over time that when you zoom out, it's like, whoa, that's substantial. But sometimes it feels redundant when you're doing it every single day. That micro progress, yeah, that's huge.
It's hard, but that's why so few. I think it's what 3% of the world's population will be success, however way they define it, because it's hard, and most people don't have the patience, which is fine. I mean, it would be a very boring world if all you had to do was sit down and write for 10 days and you're going to be successful. It would be very boring.
Well, I think when you said love the process and success will come, I almost I think the success will come should be just eliminated from that because if you love what you're doing and you love the process, you don't need the success to validate what you're doing because what you're doing is already fulfilling enough. And that's where I think a lot of society gets it wrong when you say, yes, if you love the process, you will get the material success you've been waiting for. It's like, no, stop. That's not, you can't love the process in order to be successful. You have to genuinely love the process because you love doing it. And it's this hard balance when you actually remove yourself from the result you want. That's when you get the result you want, once you've detached from wanting it. And that's the hardest thing in life, I think.
It is. I write for a purpose. I mean, it's always been the same. I was until I was 31. When I started teaching here in Korea, that's when I discovered my purpose in life. I love helping people. So everything I do, every day that I create content, I'm helping people. Now, of course, like most people, I have to earn a living. I'm not of what we used to call of independent means. I wish I was, but sadly I'm not. I haven't got a big inheritance or a trust fund. So I have to earn a living. So I have to create product as well. But my real joy comes from sitting down and doing those YouTube videos and sitting down and writing the blog posts. And doing the podcast every week because I don't do interviews with my podcast. Well, very rarely. I generally just do like quick tips, 10, 15-minute tips every week. But actually 10, 15-minute tip is a 2,000-word script that I have to write every week. And I enjoy that. I enjoy sitting down and thinking, right, these are the questions people have sent me. I just pick a question and then I go ahead and answer it. And that sense of I'm helping at least one person out there, that's good enough for me.
Is that how you define your success, the amount of people you can help?
I define my success in the fact that I've positioned myself now that every single day I get to help people. Not particularly individuals, just I get to help people. Some people don't like my teaching style, which is fine. I learned that one in the classroom. So, some students like this style, others don't. That's fine. Some people like Tony Robbins, other people don't. Perfectly normal. Tony Robbins was a big factor in my life too. I mean, I went to his UPW, Unleash the Power Within in Singapore, 2019. Oh, just unbelievable experience. And even now, when I start feeling like I'm dropping into a slump, I'll pick up the workbook that I just wrote so many notes over, and it just brings back those memories and inspires me. And I can often play the soundtrack as well because there's big into music. And within a couple of hours, I'm back exactly where I want to be. But again, I know some people out there don't like Tony Robbins, and that's fine. You got to find like mentors, if you like, who will inspire you and energize you. And mine are kind of the hard hitting people, because sometimes I just need to hear that.
Yeah. But what's so cool is think about what Tony Robbins did for you. You're doing that for other
Yeah,
people. And that
exactly.
must be such a meaningful feeling. That must
It
really
is. It is.
drive
It's
purpose.
yeah. I mean, when in my early 20s, when I was doing all sorts of jobs, sales, I trained to be a lawyer as well. So I worked in a law office. it just felt like it was a means to an end. It was like I'm following life's blueprint, get a career,
Yeah.
get a job, 9 till 5, buy a house, have a family, retire, die. And I thought, that's not the blueprint that I want for my life. I mean, some people might like that, but not for me. And that's when I was so lucky that I took the risk of quitting my law job and coming to Korea to teach English. And my plan was just to come to Korea for a year. That was 23 years ago. I'm still here. But I was lucky. I found my vocation, teaching, and that connected with something that I probably knew from when I was a teenager, which is I love helping people. I used to coach rugby when I was 19, 20. I did my coaching courses in rugby. And so I suppose it all started from there, but I wasn't aware of it when I was 18, 19. It was only coming to Korea and being in the classroom for the first time and teaching and seeing people improve that it was lighting me up. And I was going, where's this coming from? And that's kind of ultimately led to me where I am today, is just that realization that helping people is the thing that makes me buzz.
Yeah, I completely relate with that. I'm 18 right now. So in the US, I'm a senior in high school. So last year before going off to university, and it's like it's a time where I really have to plan out my future. What's my future going to look like? What do I want to do? And the one thing, although I'm not clear exactly on what I'm doing, the one thing I know is that helping people is something I'm both good at and something that makes me feel good. And I think those two things, if you can find something that makes you feel good, that you love to do, and that you are good at, that is the recipe to feel good in life and to live a great life. It seems like you've really done that.
Well, one thing that Tony Robbins will talk about, and I've forgotten the first four, which is like we all like consistency, but we like variety. There's kind of like these contrasting desires that we have, but right at the very end, there's two more, which is contribution and self-development. That growth, call it growth. Now, when you get there, when you realize that life, and it is probably true for everyone, life is all about contributing, like giving back to people. So in my way, that's helping people, teaching people, and personal development, growth. Like you have that sense that you're improving every day, or not necessarily every day, but you're improving, and that comes from reading, from learning, from trying new things. It also comes from something that we've kind of seem to have lost track of these days, which is like hobbies. Now, one of the things I would say to people, even if you're not into like Lego, but if you go and buy a Lego's expensive, you go and buy a cheap Lego set and then give yourself permission on a Saturday evening or something just to assemble whatever it is that you bought, your brain just lights up because you're creating something, you're making something. And that's something that I've actually figured out, is that it's also that it gives you that sense of growth. You're making something, so you're making something tangible as well, which is even better. It lights something up in our brains, and I think it's a human thing, which is to create. We need to create. So consumption, which is where a lot of people have found themselves these days, isn't really a natural human thing. It's great fun, and yeah, we get that dopamine hit, and people talk about dopamine a lot these days. I've often found it kind of weird for a naturally occurring chemical in our brains, dopamine. How can you be addicted to it? Because it's natural. It's not like nicotine where you smoke and you get a hit. This is something that's naturally produced in your brain. I always find that difficult to understand how we get addicted to that. And we are naturally addicted to dopamine anyway. It's the way we're wired. It's that feel-good thing. But that's the problem with a lot of the social media is great. I love it. When I'm usually at the end of the day, I'll scroll through to see what my friends are doing. But if you find yourself doing that constantly, that's when there may be a problem, and it's something to be aware of. But I think one of the greatest things you can do is, I say, go and buy a Lego set and just build something, create something. It's one of those ones like Nathan at Lost Dutchman. I can imagine that this guy is the happiest guy in the world because every day he gets to make something out of leather. And I'm just going, oh, that sounds like heaven. Um, and I think that's the way that humans are just naturally wired. And right now we've got a little bit lost.
Yeah, 100%. One thing I find very refreshing about what you're saying is a lot of productivity, and I know you don't love that word. I know you tend more towards effectiveness, but a lot of, for the sake of this conversation, a lot of productivity gurus love to just talk about you need to just work. And what you've mentioned multiple times is you need to make space for things that get those creative juices flowing, like a Lego set. That's not directly correlated to your actual output of what you're doing, but it's making you one, happier, and two, more effective at what you are going to be putting that deep work into.
Well, the other thing is that it also helps you with your attention because that's something that is diminishing. We've seen the scientific studies. Um, as I say, I love my technology, so I don't want to beat technology up. But one of the things I remember, I did my advanced driving test years and years and years ago now, and it's run by the police in the UK, and they said that a highly trained, qualified police driver in the UK can concentrate or pay attention for 19 minutes. Well, the studies today are and this was what 20, probably like 25 years ago. The studies today are showing that that's dropped down to 6 minutes. I was thinking, wow, we've gone from
What?
19 to 6 minutes in just 25 years. We're going to have the attention span of a goldfish in another 10 years.
God.
And I think at some point, the people who are going to succeed are the ones who don't fall into that trap.
Yeah. Um, one question I had for you is on along those lines of a lot of what productivity gurus say to do, which is just work, work, work. I I've heard a lot of advice like sacrifice your sleep, use the hours when you would be sleeping, and take two of those hours and do more work. And what I've realized with myself is when I do that, when I do sacrifice sleep for output, I tend to lose a lot of quality in the work I'm doing. So my question for you is, in your life, have where's the balance between sacrificing sleep for work?
Well, we got to remember when people talk about sacrificing sleep. I mean, of course, we can do that, but in order to do that and to be effective, you have to be running on adrenaline. And unfortunately, adrenaline isn't going to last you very long, and you're going to make some serious mistakes. Now, I prioritize sleep, but I prioritize it in a way that this is how much I need. So I know I need about 7 hours, 20 minutes. The problem I have, because of where I live, it's not really possible for me to get 7.5 hours sleep in one go. So I adopted an idea from Winston Churchill, which is to take a nap every day, and I do. I, I have about a 45 minute to an hour nap every single day, and I have done now since
It's
I came to
awesome.
Korea. So it's like 23 years, and I don't know how I could survive without those naps. And but they get me through the day. But one thing I've noticed is if on days when I cannot, for whatever reason, have that nap, my evening is just completely destroyed. I can't concentrate. I can't focus. So it's not a good strategy to sacrifice sleep, thinking you're going to get more work done, because you won't. You'll make more mistakes. You'll slow down. You'll be easily distracted. You'll procrastinate. It's not worth the effort. It might be a nice badge to have to say, oh, I'm getting away on 4 hours sleep, but you're not effective at that. Nobody is. For me, I always think of in terms of there's three basic essentials that you've got to get right if you want to be productive. Get your sleep right. Make sure you're doing enough exercise. And by that, I mean movement. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to go to the gym or out running. Just get out for a walk, do some
Hmm.
stretches, maybe do some body weight exercises if you really want to. Like squats are just amazing for your brain. But you don't have to do that. I mean, just going out for a walk is enough. 20-minute walk, and get your diet right. If you're eating high carbohydrate lunches, forget your afternoon. You're not going to be very effective because you're going to be drowsy all afternoon. So get those three things right: sleep, movement, rather than, because I know some people don't like the word exercise. So I do, but I know a lot of people don't. So call it movement. Just go out for a walk, and get your diet right, and you will be incredibly productive. And it's really quite simple. But
Yeah.
I have to say, sometimes simple, people still struggle.
Well, it's funny how at the base of every question is such a simple answer, but stuff is so complicated and there's so many complex variations, and a lot of people just, I find, make things way more complicated than they have to be. Like with time management, it's you have a finite number amount of time in a day, and you need to figure out the best way to allocate that time. Correct me if I'm wrong, but everything seems
Well, it actually
there's
goes
so
back a
many
little
different.
bit further than that. Is
Okay.
it starts with what's important to you, and yeah, you've got to be selfish here. This is like when you go on a flight, and if you do watch the pre-flight emergency procedures, most people don't watch it anymore, but let's just say they
No.
do. But when they talk about the oxygen mask coming down, they
Hmm.
don't say put your mask on the kids first and then put your mask on. It's always put your mask on first before helping the person next to you. And there's a very good reason for that: is you are going to be useless to somebody if you're already unconscious. So if we take that into the real world, if you don't make sure that you're right, that you're organized, that you've had enough sleep, that you're focused, you're going to be useless to everybody else. So you first got to sort yourself out. What's important to you? That's the number one question. I've heard people say, "Who do I want to be?" is another question to ask yourself.
Mm.
And again, I've always said to people, look at the people you admire. I'm quite lucky. I was able to meet those people who were born in the 1920s. Now, if you think the people born in the 1920s went through the Great Depression, they went through a world war, the Cold War. You know,
Mm.
whatever you might think of Donald Trump and the chaos at the moment in that government, to them, that's nothing compared to what
Yeah.
they've been through.
Yeah.
They were just an
That's true.
amazing generation, and they were very stoical. But one thing that you knew about those people, and those I've seen interviewed, they know exactly what's important to them, and they've learned to just ignore what isn't important. And I think that's really important: is figure out what you want first, and the kind of life that you want to live, because that way you can help and be an inspiration to other people as well. But just if you're together and you're focused and you know what you're doing and you're happy, you're going to be fine. But if you don't know what's important to you, it's like they say, if everything's important, nothing's important. And if you
Mm.
don't know what's important to you, then everybody else's urgencies, crises, whatever, is going to become your urgencies and crises. And it's not a very nice life.
No, it's not. I think I quote this in just about every interview I do, but it speaks to the power of this quote by Ray Dalio. I'm not sure if you know who that is.
Hmm.
Yeah. You can do anything, but you can't do everything. And I think what you just said
It's
really
true.
speaks to that. Yeah. You got
It's
to
true.
identify what's important.
Those Lego sets, they're fantastic.
Yeah.
But you've had the thing about those is it's more about training your brain to be able to pay attention again.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
why I
That's,
mentioned about the Lego sets. It's how do you get your brain? How do you coach your brain to get back that attention? We know that you can train your brain to pay attention to something solely for 19 minutes. It's been done in the past. It can be done again, but the only way you'll do it is by training. Which is another thing about. I heard this the other day. Is reading books is another way of doing it. Like real books,
yeah.
not digital books, but reading real books is another way of training your attention.
When I read in the mornings, or whatever I do after that, I find myself so much more concentrated and just locked in. Reading is such a powerful tool, and I didn't know that there, well, I had an idea that there would be science behind that, but it's interesting to hear you confirm that because that's definitely something I've experienced.
There's a lot of things that are coming out in science now, and I think it's sparked because the concerns over social media, but it's having a bigger impact because they're discovering new things. It's like yesterday I learned about handwriting because I thought, well, hang on a minute, we can use a Apple Pencil, for example, on an iPad. Surely that's the same thing, but apparently it's not. Um, the pen and piece of paper, particularly if you get away from the screen, so you can go to a dining room or go to a coffee shop with just a notebook and a pen and just write down your plans, your thoughts, your feelings. It engages parts of your brain that no technology has ever been able to do. And I thought, wow. And I've noticed it myself because last year I did an experiment. I stopped doing my planning in a notes app like Apple Notes or something, and I just got an A4 notebook and just started planning out projects, YouTube videos, podcasts, and stuff on that. 1 month after doing that, I tripled my viewership on YouTube videos. I was going, no way, it can't be
Wow.
just paper. I was getting on average after a week something like 2,000 views. Now, after a week, it's up to 6, sometimes 9,000 views. And I'm going, no way, it can't be paper. But that was the only thing I changed. I didn't change anything else. I just started planning them out on paper instead of digital. And I think what was happening was that pen and paper was making me think deeper and better. And I
Hmm.
was able to weave a narrative, a story within the video that I wasn't able to do when I was looking at bullet points on a screen.
That's so fascinating. I guess I'm gonna start having to prep for podcasts on paper. That's
Yeah, it's just, I mean, you just take 30 minutes, go to go to a dining table, just get away from the
yeah,
screen for 30 minutes or so and just say, right, this is the topic, and just let yourself brain just open up and go. You'll be surprised at what you come up with that you probably wouldn't have come up with if you'd done it on paper only.
100%.
Sorry, on
All right.
digital only.
Yeah, yeah. So I end, or I'm starting to end all my podcasts with the theme, the overarching theme of this podcast, which is it's called the Grateful Podcast, and I have created this, or I guess entitled this idea I have, the duality of gratitude and ambition. So I believe that the best way to pursue goals, if you're optimizing for fulfillment, is by being grateful for what you have right now while also simultaneously pursuing something in the future. Because so many people seem to think that there's this, either you're grateful for what you have right now and you're just going to settle, or you hate your circumstances, so you're going to go for more. And obviously, that's not everybody, but I see that, especially among my peer group, and I'm trying to break that. So, my question for you is how has gratitude, or has it even, affected how you've pursued your passion and your goals in your life?
I've always struggled with the because I tried gratitude journaling and never really found it
Yeah,
helpful for me. Just like meditation never was helpful for me. But
interesting.
that said, I write a journal every morning, but it's more like I just empty my head. But one other thing that I am really grateful for is something that I must have been taught when I was at school, and I don't remember which teacher taught me. But the one thing I was taught at school was if everybody's going left, go right.
Mm,
And I am so grateful that I learned that at school because I saw what was going on like 10 years ago when everyone was talking about blockchain and Bitcoin and everyone's jumping on it. And I'm going, that's not a business. But I heard everybody's making millions of dollars and everyone's jumping on the bandwagon. And then it all became a bit of a mess and nobody trusts it now. So it's been spoiled. Um, my thinking was, okay, I need to double down on cash. I didn't, but my natural instinct now is to say, right, if everyone's going digital, I'm going cash. I mean, it
you'll
didn't
go
happen,
paper.
but
Yeah.
but I. This also manifests itself when I was also later at school. Everybody in my school was doing rugby and rugby in the winter, cricket in the summer. I did cross country running because nobody wanted to do it, and I ended up being the school captain for 3 years that nobody's ever done before. Like 3 years in a row, I was a school captain across country.
Wow.
Now, that looks really impressive on the board in the dining room, which is still there in school. And yet, actually, it was easy because nobody wanted to do cross-country running. But that, the biggest gratitude I have is for the teacher, and I think it was a guy called Mr. Farrow, who taught me that if everybody's going left, you go right. If everyone's going right, you go left. Whatever it is, just do the opposite of what everyone else is doing and you'll be fine. And it's absolutely true.
That's amazing. I definitely take that. I definitely implement that in my own life, and I love that. Well, Carl, thank you so much for coming on today.
You're very welcome.
This was a fantastic conversation. I hope my audience learned from you. I definitely did, and I'm super excited for this.
Good. Well, thank you very much for having me on your podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Grateful Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean the world to me if you could either share this episode with friends and family who you think would enjoy it, or leave a review down below on what I can do to make this better for you and for other listeners. All that would just help me be able to spread my message of gratitude and living a purposeful life. I hope you have a great day. See you soon.